everyone, thanks for tuning into Animal Adventures with me today. My name is Kylynn and I've had a special request this week from Madeline who would like to learn more about owls in this week's animal adventure. So I'm so happy for this request because owls are one of the most fascinating animals I've had the pleasure of learning about. Let's dive in and learn a little bit more. Whenever I see owls in nature, I always notice right away how quiet they are when they're flying. And it's actually really strange for a large-sized bird to be so quiet because usually when birds fly, their wings interact with air turbulence to make a lot of noise. But owls have actually evolved as very wonderful predators to have two things that make them good at being quiet while they fly. First of all, the structure of their feathers themselves actually muffle the air as the air goes past the wings of the owl. And then second, the way that the feathers lay across each other in their wings also helps to keep them super quiet while they're flying. So that makes them really sneaky hunters. Another fascinating fact about owls is that they actually have fixed eye sockets. That means that their eyes can't roll around like this. Instead, they have to move their entire head in order to look in a new direction. So that means that owls can also turn their neck really far. They can turn their head really far around, almost 270 degrees for some species. And the way they do that is because they have 14 vertebrae in their neck instead of the 7 that humans have. And all of those extra bones allow their neck to be very flexible. Fascinating fact number 3 about owls is that they actually have 2 of their toes in the front and 2 of their toes in the back, and that's called zygodactyl. But most birds of prey, like a bald eagle for example, have 3 toes in the front and 1 toe in the back that they use to grab prey. But unlike most zygodactyl birds, owls can actually take one of their back toes and flip it around to the front if they need to walk around or use 3 in the front instead. There are 250 species of owls in the world, and all owls are carnivores, aka birds of prey. That means that they eat meat. And most owls eat small mammals like voles or mice or rats or rabbits. But a lot of other types of owls also eat fish and insects and even other birds and even other owls. So when owls eat their prey, they either swallow it whole or they rip it into smaller pieces and swallow those pieces. And those little hard bits like the fur and the bones and the teeth are not effectively digested by the owl. So instead, those pieces, those coarse pieces of their prey sit in their first stomach, and their first stomach compacts that all down until it forms a pellet, and then they regurgitate or vomit the pellet back up. And a lot of people think that owls are the only animal to create pellets, but in fact a lot of types of birds, a lot of shorebirds and a lot of other types of predators that are birds make pellets as well. But the thing about owls is that they don't have very strong acid in their stomach that breaks down these pieces. So owl pellets are most commonly the ones found with whole pieces of bones or whole pieces of skeletons in them. And therefore they're the ones that are most fun for us to dissect in science class or at summer camps. I mentioned before there's 250 species of owl in the world, and they live in all parts of the world except Antarctica. And there's a lot of different types of owls that live right here in Northern California and can even be seen in urban areas. So let's dive in and learn a little bit about some of those different species. First species I want to talk about is a really famous one, and many people have heard of the great horned owl. They're a really large size owl. They're almost 2 feet tall, and they have a diet that they like to eat pretty big sized prey. They like squirrels and rabbits and even skunks, and they'll also prey on your pet cat if you do allow your pet cat to go outside. So please keep your pet cats indoors. The other thing about great horned owls is they can live a really long time. They've been recorded to living up to 28 years in the wild, so those guys must be extra wise. Barred owls are a little bit smaller, a couple inches shorter than great horned owls, but their biggest predator is actually the great horned owl. So they are commonly predated upon by the great horned owl. They are a really vocal owl. They do a lot of screeches and hoots and even make a cackling sound. They make a lot of different noises. They also aren't native to California, and instead they've pushed their way into the Pacific Northwest where they're thriving really well, but they're actually pushing out the northern spotted owl. The northern sawet owl is, in my opinion, the cutest of all owls. It's a really small little guy and only stands 7 inches tall. And these guys are so interesting. First of all, they're one of the only owls to cache their food, so they can collect prey and actually save it for later. And if that prey happens to freeze while they're waiting to eat it, they'll actually sit on it on a branch and warm it up until it thaws when they can eat it after it's thawed. So we actually had a northern sawet owl come into our wildlife center, and it came from San Francisco where it was found. And when our staff examined it, it seemed to be healthy, but they found that its tail feathers and its flight feathers had actually been cut. And they thought that maybe somebody was actually trying to keep this owl as a pet. So it's worth reminding everyone that that is illegal, and it's also absolutely inappropriate to keep a wild animal as a pet. So this little guy was kept in our care until those flight feathers grew back and then released back into the wild again. There's a lot more species of owl that live in Northern California, but the last one I'm going to talk about is burrowing owls, and that's because we actually have burrowing owls in our wildlife center right now. Burrowing owls are a smaller size owl. They have a little bit longer legs, and they stand about 10 inches tall, and they're one of a couple of types of owls that are primarily ground dwelling. They like to hop around on the ground in open flatlands and grasslands, and they actually lay their eggs underground in burrows that have been dug by other animals, or they can even dig their own burrows. And the reason that burrowing owls are really important to us right now is because they're actually in decline. And so the project that we're doing here at our shelter is we take in baby owls that have been born in the wild but that otherwise could not survive and thrive in the wild, and we raise them until they're mature into adulthood, and then we release them back into the wild again, where they can continue to repopulate, have more babies, and hopefully keep their population numbers high. So aside from our burrowing owl project, we also get owls in to our wildlife care center for other reasons. We had an owl come in after being entangled in a barbed wire fence. We had an owl come in after it was entangled in a kite string. And sometimes owls come in because they've been inadvertently poisoned. And that's happened because people have put out rat poison, and either a rat or a mouse or another animal has eaten it. And as that animal starts to die, it'll take a couple of hours to a couple of days for that animal to pass away. And during that time, they've become really slow and ill, and therefore they're really, really easy prey for predators like owls and hawks and coyotes and other animals. And so after an owl has eaten that poisoned rat or poisoned mouse, then that owl becomes poisoned and can potentially die. And if something were to eat that owl, then that animal would be poisoned and potentially die as well. And poison is a very, very painful and inhumane way to die. So I really, really encourage all of you to not use rat poisons or mouse poisons, and instead seek another alternative, humane option. Instead of putting out poisons that can be a huge detriment to so many different types of animals, including your pet cat or pet dog. I hope you have learned some fascinating facts about all of the wonderful owls that we share our world with. And if you have a topic that you would like to request for an animal adventure, if there's an animal that you're wondering about or something about our shelter you would like to know more about, please feel free to send that in the comments below. Type that into the comments, and I would love to consider doing an animal adventure about it. I'll see you all next time with a brand new episode.